What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video over here on what if Deku had the power of the four heavenly beasts. Now, before we jump into it, I just want to state, go check out in the description. There'll be a second channel there. There'll be a channel link there. That is Anime Utopia. It's my joint channel that I run with What If Karma, Ellie, What If Ellie, Oakley, and Golden Reaper What Ifs, also known as What If Slayer, or was previously What If Slayer. If you all want to go check that out, go check in the description. You'll be able to see that, and I think you guys would love it. It's going to be all sorts of anime content, so if you guys are looking for anime reviews, what ifs, theories, manga reviews, maybe some anime video game gameplay, tons of stuff, you can go check it out over there in the link in the description. Go over there. Now, as well as that, go check out my personal Discord. Now, go check out my personal Discord down in the description down below. I shout out people who joined. As you guys know in my previous video, I'm planning to be doing double uploads all this week, so my second video I do probably will not have shout outs while the first video will. And so yeah, as well as, I host events on there. So currently next Sunday at 1:30 Central Time on Minecraft, I'll be hosting an event called the Dino Games. I know, unique name, right? It's going to be a Minecraft event where only one can be the winner. So if you guys are interested in that, go join the description. Go join the Discord down below and DM me on the description. Speak, Austin. DM me over there and tell me you're in. Currently, we have 3 people competing. So if you guys want to go ahead and join, go ahead. There are 7 spots. My bad. There are 7 spots. 3 are already taken. So if you guys want to go be one of the other 4, go ahead and, go into the description down below. Let's jump. Now, sorry guys. I'm so spinned around currently. A lot on the plate, my guys. Once again, I'm very sorry. Now, let's jump straight into this what if, okay? So, where we last left off, Izuku had just finished his, training. Well, not training, his entrance exam. Izuku had passed the entrance exam, which he was pretty happy of, He thought that passing it was pretty amazing. Him and Bakugo both had passed it, so it was pretty wonderful. Izuku then realized that he was actually ranked first. He wondered why, and the holoclip had told him that he had ranked first for multiple reasons, including rescue points. Izuku didn't know that rescue points were a thing, but figured that rescuing someone is just what a hero is meant to do. So he thought it was pretty weird how they had given him bonus points for it. Even though, it's what you're meant to do. So Izuku eventually walked outside on the day and found Bakugo waiting for him. Bakugo smiled over at Izuku and he said, "Yo, Izuku, what's up, bro?" And Izuku said that he was just going to go head to UA and asked Bakugo if he wanted to come with him. Bakugo said sure as him and Izuku both walked towards, UA. They were both chatting on their plans and stuff and how everything's gonna go for them when they get there. Bakugo said that he was gonna rule the school and that everyone was gonna have to listen to him and ha ha ha, yeah. And Izuku just kind of laughed at this, finding Bakugo to be kind of funny on his statement, seeing how Bakugo really couldn't do much. Izuku then again also reminded himself that he was kind of in the same boat. Both him and Bakugo both joked around with each other a lot nowadays and had a pretty fun time together. So Izuku found no reason to ever really be mad at Bakugo. He ended up walking around, and with Bakugo as well, he decided that it was time to, just go hang out and chill. Eventually, they both entered the classroom quicker than what Izuku was able to do solo, for a multitude of reasons. One of the main ones being that, well, Bakugo is probably better with directions than Izuku is. So, of course, it's going to be easier for the two of them to know how to get into a classroom. Eventually, they both sat down. Bakugo didn't put his feet up, and so Ida never really yelled at him for it. Eventually, other kids started to come into the classroom and looked at the two people. Bakugo was ranked second, while Izuku was ranked first. They were a well-known duo between all the students. Everyone looked at them with a look of awe, and Izuku then waved hi, saying, "Hello, I'm Izuku Midoriya." The first boy to respond was a blue-haired man, saying, "Ah, Izuku Midoriya, you're you're ranked 1, right?" And Izuku's like, "Oh yes, I am, with my buddy Bakugo as rank 2. Ida was kind of shocked because Bakugo had seemed to be a way more aggressive fella, while Izuku seemed to be laid back and chill, but then he really thought about it and he was like, "Oh, that makes sense. It's probably their dichotomy. One's the chill man and one's the more aggressive looking guy." But then Ida reminded himself never to judge a book by its cover. Maybe Bakugo is relatively chill as well. Ida then said that his name was Ida Tenya, and which, kind of surprised Izuku because the Tenya family were pretty well known for being heroes. Eventually, Izuku ended up started to chill out and walk back to his seat after explaining that he was who he was and everything. Eventually, a girl came in and walked up in front of him. Izuku looked up and noticed that it was the same girl he had saved at an earlier point. And she's like, "You're Izuku, right? I didn't really see you much in your regular form, but I guess this is how you look like when you're outside of your quirk, right?" Izuku said, "Yep, this is just plain old me. I'm not transformed, so that's about it." Transformed? Is that what you call it when you use your quirk? Yeah, because that's what I do. I transform, into one of my currently 2 forms. I don't know if I have any more or not. Then again, the second form came out of the blue, so of course I wouldn't be surprised if there's a third form that just comes out of the blue. Izuku said as he starts laughing slightly. This confused most people because most quirks were pretty well understood and really not much of a, well, you get an ability when you get an ability, but there had been rare cases. So they thought Izuku was one such quirk and realized that if what Izuku said was true, that means that his quirk was probably really strong. Eventually, Bakugo's like, "So, Izuku, are you just gonna keep chatting about yourself?" And Izuku apologized, saying, "Oh yeah, this is my friend Bakugo. He's ranked 2nd. Which surprised Uraraka that the rank 1 and 2 personnel would be pretty close friends. Uraraka then said hi, and Bakugo was like, "Psh, you wouldn't have said hi unless if Izuku told you to," basically. Uraraka felt kind of, saddened by this because she realized that, yeah, she maybe wouldn't have until a later day and time, unless if Izuku had directly stated something about it. But then Izuku's like, Bakugo, remember, we're nice. Use nice words. And Bakugo's like, fine, 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 whatever. He's like, my bad. Yes, I'm Bakugo. Okay. Uraraka was still kind of confused on Bakugo's, dynamic with Izuku. They seemed to be pretty close friends and were probably childhood friends, from what Uraraka could understand from her conversations with Izuku. Eventually, a person showed up at the door. This person looked kind of weird, very confusingly looking, to say with the least bit of issue. Izuku looked at the person who had just entered the room and noticed that it seemed to be some sort of male. This male seemed to be in a weird yellow sleeping bag that Izuku could smell just from the air alone was not the cleanest of a bag. Izuku then looked towards the man, and the man said, I'm your teacher. I'm Shoto Aizawa. I want you both and everyone else in this room to get on their gym outfits. We're going to have a Quirk accession test. Izuku then... not Izuku. Ida then stated that, Sir, didn't we already taken a Quirk assessment test? Yeah, you took a Quirk assessment test for them. I don't know your Quirk, though. And if I'm going to be teaching you and I don't know your Quirk, how can I teach you? How can I help you get better with your Quirk? Okay, Ida said. But then he asked, what about the, UA, thing? The UA thing? You mean the, initiation ceremony? If you have time to go spend on that, then you're not a hero. Your job is to save people, not sit through boring meetings and discuss things. There's a difference in your objectives if that's your objective. Everyone kind of shrugged at this and decided to get on their gear and head out. Izuku was relatively okay with what was going on. He looked towards the outside area and realized that everything was pretty nice here. Izuku then looked at his gym costume and asked Aizawa a question. Aizawa, sir? What is it, Midoriya? Can I get a quick change on my gym clothes? What do you mean? Well, you see, as you know, one of my things with my quirk is that I can change forms. And my white tiger form kinda gives me a tail. Now, I can still feel the tail when I get it, and putting it through no hole, so it's just kind of sitting there, hurts. Fair enough, kid. If you get a tail when you transform, I guess you can go ahead and discuss that at a later day and time with the other people that do your gym clothes, but for now, you're just gonna have to make do with what you got. Yes, sir. Izuku then eventually got prepared for what he had to do. He already understood his main objective, and that was to, not fail the test. Izuku had worked too hard to get into this thing just to go ahead and fail it. At least that was his thought. He had worked way too hard to just fail. Izuku eventually decided to try his hardest not to use his tiger form, or at least try to stay in his tiger form. Aizawa then stated, Izuku, you got first place, so you're going to be first up. I need you to throw this ball as far as you can. What do you mean throw this ball as far as I can? Throw as far as you can. You can use your quirks as well during this. I don't have any issues with it. Some kids in the background started to laugh how this was going to be fun because they could use their quirks. Aizawa heard this and said, "Oh, you think this is going to be fun? How about this? The people that get the worst score on this test will be kicked." And not kicked, I mean, will be expelled after this test. This caused almost all the students to instantaneously freeze up. Getting expelled was probably one of the worst things that could happen, especially after all the work they did to get into the school. Getting expelled just seems like it would be a waste of their time. Not to mention that, it would be a major letdown for all their parents that allowed them to attend such school if he just got expelled. Izuku realized that this situation was much more serious than he had let on it to be at first. So Izuku really stopped caring about his tail hurting. "Izuku, you're up first." "Yes, sir." "Your job is to throw this ball as far as you can with your capabilities." "Okay." "You have to throw this as far as you can. You hear me? In other words, you gotta throw it as far." "Yes, sir." Izuku's tried to think of a way to use his quirks in a manner that would allow him to throw the ball as far as he could. Izuku then thought about using his ability to control potential and turn it into kinetic energy and send kinetic into potential energy in his black turtle form. So in front of everyone, Izuku slowly started to change. Black scales started to grow across his body as a whitish pattern started to appear on the scales in what looked to be Nordic writing. His body slowly started to change, and he got slightly taller and a little bit more muscular. His hair began to darken, and his eye color went from its usual lighter green to a much more darker green. Izuku then grabbed the ball and, storing all the potential energy he had into his body, into his hand, chucked it. The ball reached around 900 meters with this single throw, surprising most people there because that's pretty impressive. Everyone else threw the ball and ranged around from just a simple 80 to 90, except for a few that had more strength-related quirks or could use their quirks in a way that allowed them to, increase their limits, such as Momo with her catapult and Bakugo with his explosions. Eventually, the second event was a race. 100-meter dash. Izuku transformed into his white tiger form and, after spending time to fix his tail, began to start getting ready for his sprinting. He got down onto a lower body position with his arms being on the floor, much like a tiger ready to start pouncing on his prey. Izuku then quickly leaped forward, almost clearing the entire thing in less than a second. Still not nearly as quick as it's not nearly as quick as Ida, but still pretty quick in his capabilities to do it. He then decided to continue to help with other people with some of their own personal things as well. He knew that he should be able to do whatever he really needs to without having much of an issue. Izuku then ended up helping the person out in their own personal test, which Aizawa found commendable. So he decided that he wouldn't actually expel anyone, much to everyone's excitement. And he also stated that if it wasn't for Izuku, he would have expelled everyone, much to everyone's, fright. Eventually, Izuku prepared to, start doing what he needed to do. He knew that he had to quickly prepare. The rest of the events went on as you would probably guess how they would go. Izuku ranked closer to the top in most events, except for a certain few that he just really didn't have the ability to rank up higher on. Which Aizawa could understand, but Izuku always tried something new whenever the event required it. So if Izuku didn't know how to do something, he would try something new to modify his own personal quirk, or not really modify it, but attempt to use it the same way. Eventually, Izuku then started to quickly gain popularity within the group. He was known as a pretty nice guy, and his quirk alone gave everyone a very heavily interest in him. Izuku never really saw a problem with anyone, and most people never saw a problem with him. As the weeks go on, Izuku became better allies and friends with everyone, and started to get to know everyone just a tiny bit better, which made his life a lot easier in the long run. Izuku knew that he was going to be probably sharing the same class with everyone else here for a while, at least to his knowledge for a long while, because no one else would be really changing classes unless if they didn't deserve to still stay in the class that they were in, which Izuku thought could always be a possibility, but not currently. Well, at least not to his knowledge currently. Eventually, Izuku ended up quickly preparing to attack. He was pretty well off on everything during this training exercise after the test was finished, but he knew that his abilities still seemed to be somewhat lackluster. They didn't really seem to have the same kick as they once did to Izuku. Izuku looked around and noticed that almost all of these other classmates were doing pretty well, which delighted Izuku, and Izuku felt pretty happy for his other classmates, but realized that his own abilities didn't seem to be improving much. Izuku kind of understood this, and eventually asked Aizawa, Sensei, do you know any way for me to actually help increase my capabilities? Aizawa was very confused by Izuku's statement. Izuku was obviously one of the best in the class. It was an undeniable fact at this point, and everyone looked up to the boy. So he was kind of confused when Izuku just randomly asked him, do you know a way that I can get stronger? Aizawa then ended up stating that to get stronger, Izuku, that's up to you. You can train in martial arts and stuff, but one of your forms don't seem to really oblige by many martial arts. Most of them would actually probably be more of a hindrance to you. And I know you do have a time limit on some of your forms, so maybe that could be a help. Just keep on using them and try to prolong your use on using them. Izuku eventually sighed and understood that Aizawa was right. There wasn't much else he could do. Izuku felt very mad when that happened. He understood that he caused himself to, have the same effect as it is now. He knew he wasn't weak, but he still frowned himself on for not becoming better, not being able to be better. Izuku sighed as the next day happened. All Might bust into the room, chanting that he was entering the room like a normal person, which Izuku kind of laughed at because almost everyone in the class knew that All Might was not entering the room like a normal person. All Might then stated they were going to do this test, this hero versus villains test, and that all the students would be split up into teams of 2 and would have to compete against each other. Izuku got on the same team with Uraraka. Izuku and Uraraka talked a lot. It wasn't nearly too much, but it was enough that Izuku had a good judge of Uraraka's character, and knew her quirk very well as well. So he knew he could be able to probably do what he had to do, and probably win this with her. Which pretty much felt likewise towards Uraraka to Deku. Eventually, Izuku and Uraraka both ended up preparing for the fight. They saw that they were up against Bakugo and Ida, two other of their closer friends. Izuku knew that Bakugo would probably try to go mainly after him, mainly because of their score and their personal rivalry that the two had. So Izuku was expecting it. Bakugo knew that Izuku was pretty strong and knew that Ida could probably handle Uraraka as long as he was able to take out Izuku. Uraraka wasn't the issue, seeing how her quirk seemed to be more support-based than it was aggro-based, which was a pretty cool thing that Bakugo found her quirk to be pretty cool and understood that her quirk, if used in the right way, could be very well used and become a pretty effective quirk in anything that, well, he needed to do and anything that she needed to do. Eventually, Bakugo ended up deciding that he will directly attack Izuku. Izuku ended up preparing himself. He found Bakugo waiting for him, almost like Bakugo had knew exactly where Izuku would be. Bakugo saw an explosion at Izuku. Bakugo had become way better at his quirk at this point, and could probably even take out Izuku if he wasn't careful. The explosion hit Izuku, sending him flying back into a wall. Luckily, he was in his turtle form, so it wasn't much of an issue. Bakugo then quickly attacked Izuku, which caught Izuku off guard, of course. Izuku eventually dodged the attack, though, with barely any ability. Bakugo then used this new move he was working on called AP Shot. He was working on this move mainly just because he had known that Izuku was probably gonna become way far ahead of him if he didn't have some sort of special army piecing move, especially with Izuku's turtle form. Bakugo sent the explosion sending right towards Izuku. Izuku saw this and tried to guard, but for some reason, it didn't work. The attack went through Izuku's guard even though he was in his black turtle form, causing a giant hole to appear in his arm. Izuku grabbed it as he quickly started to run away. He knew he wouldn't be able to actually fight Bakugo and realized his arm was pretty effed. Eventually, Izuku started to feel hotter, as his breath slowly started to become more exaggerated. It's almost like he was out of energy even though he knew he wasn't. And then, eventually, Bakugo started to feel the room temp get hotter and hotter. And even Uraraka and Ida could start telling that something was off. It was getting warm. Too warm. They were very confused. Izuku looked down to where the hole in his arm once had been and saw that it was slowly starting to heal itself. Izuku was very confused at this point and pretty freaked out. Eventually, Izuku looked around and saw that almost everyone was starting to experience intense heat inside the building. Izuku looked at his arms and started to see cracks appear in his blue and blackish exterior. He started to see that it slowly started to glow with a million light. Izuku then eventually ended up starting to realize that this must be something new, maybe a new transformation. So Izuku focused on the effect that was going on and tried to increase it. Izuku eventually felt the heat around him grow even hotter and hotter. Eventually, All Might came over the intercoms and said, "Izuku, stop. Bro." Izuku looked around and saw that he had sprouted slight and small feathers around his body. He also realized that almost all of his clothing was basically burned and incinerated, which Izuku quickly tried to hide by picking up a stone. But as soon as he picked up the stone, it melted in his hands, which Izuku thought was a massive issue. Izuku sighed, knowing that none of these issues will actually be issues when he eventually gets his hero costume that would be specialized around using his own body hair that will help transform and adapt to these new forms. Eventually, the event was called off because most of the other students that were there were all quite literally passed out with the inability to do anything, because most of them were, well, knocked out. All Might had a talk with Izuku and asked, "Izuku, did you know about this form?" Izuku said, "No, I had no clue, All Might. I didn't know about it at all." This kind of scared, this scared All Might a little bit. Because if Izuku did not know about his own power that he had just unlocked, that was an issue. Everyone was pretty excited for Izuku, including Izuku himself. He had just unlocked a new form. That was something he didn't know. And All Might told Izuku, "Izuku, you will start training in solo, okay, for a little bit, until you get a better grasp on that new form. We can't have you literally melting an entire building," which Izuku understood, of course. Melting an entire building would not look good for UA at all, especially if one of their students did it. Eventually, Izuku ended up getting a better control over his form, just in time for Aizawa to say that they will be starting a new event. They will be going to the USJ tomorrow. Izuku was pretty excited after hearing this and went to sleep pretty late the night. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.